Scene Daddy interviews.
All right, everyone, and welcome to the Scene Daddy podcast. My name is Ian, and today we are here with Tyler of Saving Vice. Tyler, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Wow, that connection sounds so good compared to the last time that we spoke.
First time for everything.
It really is. So right now, you're in New York, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get to the nitty-gritty. Let's get to the stuff right away. So you are recording your very first full-length album right now, right?
For Saving Vice, yes.
Very nice. Oh, yeah. Definitely, this is all about Saving Vice. We won't go into as much of, the background of what you've done, because I think we talked about that the last time, right?
Yeah. I was just trying to make sure that my answer was super specific.
Oh, yes. No, hey, that's the way it's got to be. That is very true. So you're in New York. You're recording right now. How many days have you actually been in the studio?
So we had our first day yesterday with vocals. So, yep, day 2 is today.
It's good that you're actually able to speak. So that's something, right?
Oh, yeah. It was, I definitely learned a lot from, past experience and prep and stamina and all that stuff. And we're obviously recording a lot more than last time. And it had also been a few years since I really did anything like this. So, but I definitely learned a lot from also just, going to a coach. You learn a lot in a small amount of time with just like breathing. That makes all the difference for just not even just shows, but, especially when we don't have a lot of time. We're trying to do like, maybe a song or two a day. Mm-hmm. It's nice to be able to go for the entire studio session without, blowing yourself out. So.
Oh, very good. So yeah, is that what you're doing, is 1 or 2 songs a day?
Yeah, if we can. Yeah, I know today we're going to go in for a bit and then, work on one song, and then we're going to take a little break because Robbie has to just redo a couple things on guitar and
okay.
Tweak a few things. Yeah. So, and then we'll go back in for a round 2. So we went all through yesterday and we banged out 2, but I think today we're going to take a little break in between just to be safe.
Oh,
because we had some other instrumental stuff anyways.
Okay. But are most of the instrumentals, are they almost complete, or are they pretty much done?
The album's pretty much done instrumentally.
Wow.
Save a few little, redos and stuff that we heard after that, Robbie wanted to go back and fix.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. That is, I don't know if maybe I'm coming at this from a different angle, but it seems like a pretty quick process. Am I wrong on that?
It can be. It depends on kind of how you go about it, I guess. It's for instrumentals are a lot faster, especially guitar, than doing vocals is, depending on what you're doing. Like the singing takes a lot longer than the screaming does, obviously.
Yeah. Right.
We'll go through melodies and it's like you hear everything's under a microscope. So, you might have something like this. It's a lot. There's a lot more to critique when you're using clean vocals.
Very true. Very true. And now, for anyone that doesn't happen to know, you are part of the dual vocalist part in Saving Vice. So Chase is the other person for you that's doing clean vocals and unclean vocals, right?
He's just doing screams.
Oh, okay. So now, hasn't he done some of the clean vocals in the past, like a little bit?
He's done like some kind of like speaking. So I guess I would say spoken word kind of stuff. Sure. But as far as actual singing, it's always been me. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I just want to make sure. I wasn't sure if anything was going to be changing on the new album. So it seems like you're going to be using kind of the same formula that the band has had for a while, right?
Yeah, for the most part. And then we definitely experimented a little bit with both ends of the spectrum. So, there's like gonna be so there's some like a little stuff I can tell you is there's like, we have one song where there's no singing and it's like just me doing heavier stuff than I've ever done on the past stuff with Chase. And then we have a song that's completely singing too. So we're really trying to like, it all sounds like us, and I think that like our fans will enjoy all of it. But we definitely tried to hit like all our favorite parts of our genre on this one. So
very cool. All right. Now, when you went into that writing process, then did you say, I want to do this, or did that happen kind of naturally while you were like, hey, this whole song is going to just be heavy. This whole song is going to be singing because it just makes sense.
It was a plan. I think, we already have some stuff shelved for maybe, you know, the next record, and kind of an idea of where we want to maybe take our sound as it goes. But we knew we wanted to branch out a little bit and hit some new audiences and kind of showcase everything we're capable of, I guess, you know, and like, you know, and not just pigeonhole ourselves into like one like niche. So, you know, we wanted to really like just go all out and just go like super ballsy and, you know, have one just really heavy, fun song. But we also wanted to have one that was just a little more accessible. Okay. You know, that, you know, maybe someone who might not listen to metalcore, because I found that a lot of the times a band will have, or a metalcore band specifically might have that one really catchy kind of radio song that is the song that introduces a lot of new fans into that genre or that band who might not have even given them a chance before, which is, you know, one aspect of it. But I've also kind of always wanted to do kind of like some poppy, rocky style stuff. I wouldn't say it's like straight up pop or anything like that. Right. But it's definitely like the catchiest, you know, most marketable stuff we've ever had, at least as far as the clean side goes.
Right. And I think that goes for a lot of bands, right? It's, you get into that conversation about quote unquote selling out, but a lot of the time it's you want to reach a lot of people and get people to listen to more of your music. So that completely makes sense. I'm assuming you're not going full Bring Me the Horizon.
No, it's not like, you know, it's still, we're not going like that electronic or anything. I know, you know, I was actually, you know, speaking of that, I actually was interested at how like, it was almost like some of their electronic stuff sounded like it was supplementing instruments, which I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, you know, some of the like electronic parts sounded like they were almost like written on guitar and then turned into electronic.
I could hear that.
So it still had that like drive, but it's more marketable. We didn't quite go that far. It's still like, I wouldn't say we went too much farther than maybe their lightest stuff on like Sempiternal. If I was trying to give an example,
sure,
at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm assuming, you know, having an EP, Colder Than Dark, and then now going in to write a full album, you're probably thinking to yourself, all right, we want to keep, you know, our fan base. We want to make them happy, but we also want to bring other people in while being true to ourselves. So I would assume that that's a little bit difficult to balance everything out. Am I right on that?
I mean, it isn't. It isn't. I feel like, you know, the audience that we have, and like, I feel like a lot of audiences in just the scene in general have a pretty wide scope of what they'll listen to.
True.
And I feel like sometimes it's a little contradictory. I don't know if I pronounced that properly just now, but it's you know, you'll have like, I feel like there's so many people who are like diehard, you know, they're diehard Knock Loose fans, but they still really love the new Bring Me album, or they still listen to pop punk and they still like, you know, old metalcore stuff. You know, some people I think like don't want to admit that they like a lot of things, but they do. But I feel like for the most part, we have a pretty wide audience of people who like come from all different, you know, fan bases and stuff. So it's pretty easy as far as like appeasing a large audience of people, but we definitely wanted to make sure that anyone who really loved specific sounds on the EP didn't get this album and go, oh shit, like, you know, nothing sounds like that anymore. You know, so we definitely have like one or two songs at least that were specifically made to almost be like a part two of some of our favorites from the EP, to make sure that those fans got like what they wanted to hear, like a bigger and better version of what got them into us, you know?
Interesting. Okay. So was that also done on purpose, or was that something that came to you guys while you were planning this out?
It was a little bit of both. It was kind of like a combination of just some of the songs that we had on the table when we were picking which songs we were going to put on the album. We probably had like 3 or 4 other songs that I was sure were going to be on the album at one point, and then we just decided that they needed either more work or they just didn't exactly work with what we were trying to do, or they weren't the strongest. And some of the ones that were, you know, written by Robbie versus Zach, you know, some sounded a little more like newer SV, but then some of them sounded like they had the elements that made us in the beginning, plus a new twist. So that I think is those songs I feel like are going to be the ones that like really reach, you know, our original fans. But I think that they're going to love the new stuff too. But it was almost like, at least I know for a fact that this song will be that song that they wanted. You know, it's like to at least have that one song that like did it for them, you know?
Now, I'm assuming though, there's a possibility of that changing, since you, like you said, You've done 1 day in the studio, you've done 2 tracks, you're going to be going in to continue this, continue the entire process. You guys, you and Chase and the band are going to really figure out what songs are going to actually hit people and what won't.
I mean, if I'm being like completely honest, I'm kind of at a point right now where I can't really pick which song I think is going to be it's one of those things where it's like every time we kind of like get done with one or work on it, I'm like, oh, this is the best song. And then we do another one. I'm like, no, this is the best song. Like we don't have any filler on it. It's like every song could be the single,
Wow. Have you actually talked about how many tracks this full album is going to be?
Yeah. So it's 10 songs.
Okay.
So we have it. That is laid out. I can tell you that much.
Oh, very cool.
Because that as far as that goes, like that's already set in stone. We're pretty much just adding the vocals at this point.
Oh, okay. Now, is that a money thing that you were doing 10, or did you want to do more and you weren't able to? Like, how'd you pick 10 tracks?
I think it was like a combination of both. It was like, I felt like, some of us, we wanted to go up to 12 at some point, and then it was kind of, we talked about it, and like, from like my personal opinion, I can only speak for myself. Like, I feel like there's been a lot of albums I've heard in the past where, you had like 10 plus songs, but there's only 5 that you really go back to listen to. And then it kind of felt like 4 were just kind of thrown on there. Like, sure. I feel like there's a lot of albums that felt like that to me. And I just didn't want that. We just didn't want that. So I felt like having like 10 songs that were all like the best songs we could come up with would be better than like trying to just make it longer to have more.
Right.
And obviously money does come into it. I mean, you can't really pretend that, studio time, especially if you go to the right person, isn't exactly like cheap. So it's, you got to make sure you're like making the best of it, especially because, we're still a DIY band. So
for sure. Yeah. I mean, I can say as a fan of yours, and I'm sure the audience probably feels the same way, but it's more, I think I like it when you can go front to back in an album. Like I don't need 15 tracks. I don't need 18 tracks if most of it is filler. I want the front to back, here's a great song. Here's another great song. It just goes into that. I understand if there's a story being told and you need like an interlude or something like that. Like I totally get that. But in general, do you like what's your favorite album where you just go front to back?
Define the Great Line by Undergrowth.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid one from me.
I think people remember those specific albums when you're able to do that. And it's not saying that you shouldn't do interludes. It's not saying that you shouldn't have, almost like an intermission track. That definitely happens, especially if you're telling a story. But I think in general, people like that front to back. I can just put this on and let it go and not have to worry about anything.
Yeah, I definitely like, even some of my favorite, and I'm sure like, Chase or some of the other guys feel the same way. I feel like even some of my favorite albums from like past metalcore bands have at least, even like some of my favorite albums have like 1 or 2 songs that I kind of bounce over when I listen to it or that I skip over.
Right.
So it's, I mean, I'm not going to say like that no one's going to do that on any of our songs, but we've really tried to make them all like worth listening to and taking the time with. We wanted it to kind of hit from top to back or from start to finish.
Yeah.
One thing, we're still trying to figure out like, do we want to do an interlude? How we're, there's still some stuff we still have to add, like, so which I won't get too much into that, but, we're still painting the whole picture, but, the songs themselves are pretty much wrapped up minus, what we make tweak or change, on vocals.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense. So music is pretty much done besides what Robbie might want to go in and change around. You guys are still working on vocals. So in New York, are you working with Randy of If I Were You?
Yes.
Awesome. Yep. Now, did you work with him for Colder Than Dark as well?
Yes, and that was actually our first time going to him, and it was just a really good experience all around. He's just very, very easy to work with. Yeah. And it's very quick. The chemistry is really good. He can like fill in the blanks very quickly. Okay. Like on the spot, and like he's very easy to work with vocally, which is not always easy, but I've hated recording vocals in the past, but I just like I enjoyed it so much working with him. That was one of my reasons I personally wanted to go back to him, and Chase and I wanted to go back to him. Mm-hmm. So but yeah, he's been great, and especially with like because he's such a great singer, right? So like working with him on the choruses and the melodies and like getting new ideas and another perspective has been really great.
Oh, very cool. He does the vocals and drums, right? For If I Were You?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really great. And I know you have a big affinity for Underoath, as many of us do. But that's also got to be kind of a cool connection, because I always thought they were really good at pulling that vibe off, which a lot of bands don't do, drummers that are also, doing vocals, but they seem to pull it off very well.
Yeah, you know what? And I feel like it's kind of like the two vocalist thing where you don't see it as much now as you saw it back then.
Right.
It was kind of like, I felt like there was a lot of bands who tried to ride that wave, with like when the two vocalist thing was first big, it was like every band was doing it. It was the same thing. You had a lot of bands trying to do it, like Atreyu and Under Oath were doing with the drumming singer and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But there's only probably a handful that really like stand the test of time,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that's got to be kind of a cool dynamic with him, because he kind of understands what you guys are doing.
Yeah, like he definitely comes from our genre.
Yeah.
So that's which was really helpful.
No, very true. So is there anything that you've only been there for a day so far. It's funny to talk to you now, because this is like that very beginning of the process. If I was talking to you in, 4 or 5 days, you might have a different opinion on how things went. So right now you're still kind of right there in that beginning phase of everything. But was there anything yesterday when you were working with him where he helped in some certain way where you're like, yes, that's exactly what we want to do. We didn't think of that.
Yeah, it was like, there was some harmony stuff that he kind of like came up with on the spot.
Oh, very nice.
Like really like helped. There was like maybe, there might be a part that I'm like, oh, maybe I need to change this, but it just needed like the right harmony to make it come full circle or something like that. So, but as for yesterday, the songs we did yesterday came out pretty great. There was like probably 1 or 2 things that we might revise, and it's also hard to tell at this point because they're still so naked. Because it's literally just the raw vocals over the mix right now. But even at that point, it's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited.
Very nice. Obviously, we got to talk about timeline a little bit, because people are going to be super excited to hear, when the final tracks come out. What are you guys thinking right now? I know. I got to push this. It's Scene Daddy. It's Scene Daddy. I got to push this. I got to ask. So do you have any kind of idea of where you guys might be with timeline?
I can't really tell you anything as far as the album. I can say that there will be new tracks this year. Like in the near future of 2019. That's all I can really tell you.
I totally get it. I remember we were doing the anniversary show of Ian Hates. So we did the anniversary show and we talked about the possibility of you guys having new music out in 2019. My guess was around November-ish. That's what I was thinking. And that's if everything goes correct, if everything works out well, if you get all the mixes and mastering done and everything sounds good. That was my guess. So I'll put that out there for right now. I don't know if that's exactly true, but I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like this time around especially, there's like a lot of factors all going into this, which is gonna, like, there's a lot of planning and a lot we have to kind of get lined up before. Right. And we've always, I felt like, tried to be really good about never confirming or saying anything if there's any chance that like our plans could go sideways. So things happen all the time. You know what I mean? So like that way, there's no one getting their hopes up or expecting something. I don't ever want to say anything unless I know what's happening. So
for sure, yeah, and that makes total sense. But it's what I do. I got to push a little bit. So
no, I got you. I can say there will be stuff to tide people over in the meantime.
Ah, okay.
So
all right, are we thinking maybe like an Exhale type situation where maybe there's a single that comes out?
I think maybe a lot of things could be maybe.
I like it. You look. We know you're an expert at this. You know how to get around the questions. I get it.
Yeah, well, it's like choosing your words carefully is something that you learn to be really good at, like as you get more attention in any situation.
Exactly. So tell me about New York. What is your process? What do you and Chase do so that you're completely ready for, when you go in, because you're going in for like 8 hours a day that you're going to be tracking vocals. So how do you prepare for that kind of thing?
It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you got your warm-ups and all that stuff. But I think a really big thing is just like sleeping a full night if you can, don't smoke and drink shit you shouldn't before you go record. It's like, drink a ton of water. We all, we do the throat coat. We got lozenges. It's a lot of it's just like sleeping, resting, warming up. Yesterday we just went straight through 2 songs.
Right.
And by the end, like, we were getting a little worn out. So today we're gonna try going in for a couple hours, leaving, letting Robbie work, and then coming back and wrapping up just to see if that makes things better. Because the last thing you want, especially when you're on a time crunch, is to like half-ass something because you pushed yourself too hard and then have to come back. Because we're coming back in February to do the second half of the vocals. So we're here for like 5-6 days, and then we come back for another punch. And then we'll have more of the members here too when we come back to kind of revise and change anything that, if the band like wants something done differently, or if we need to do any last minute tweaks, etc.
Right. That makes complete sense as well. So there was something I didn't ask before. So when you guys go in to do vocals, do you have all of the lyrics already written?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we might paraphrase, or like, if there's something that needs to change structure wise, a lot of the time that involves like pulling the thesaurus out so you can try to make the words fit but still say the same thing, that kind of thing. But other than that, the lyrics are all set in stone.
Wow. Okay. Now, I know we had talked about this the last time, but kind of to, bring in new people that might be listening for the first time now, how do you and Chase actually write? Like, how do you guys get together? How do you write? How does he write? And then how do you bring everything together?
So we did it a little. It's a little different every time. It kind of depends on the song. There might be like one song that's like, Robbie's like, oh, Tyler, this is totally in your wheelhouse. Like, do your thing on this one. And then there might be one that just fits Chase's vibe better. It might have like, because there's certain things that he gets influence from a lot of bands that I might not follow. He has a whole different mindset when he approaches lyrics and structure sometimes, and some songs just suit him better. So there might be one where like I write the whole thing and then I meet up with him and I take, we go back and forth on anything that, maybe he doesn't like, or he has any suggestions, or like he'll write we'll both write lyrics about the same subject, come together and see how they can make one. So some songs are straight up 50-50, and then there's some that were like all him or all me. It really just depends on like which song and sometimes what the content or the subject matter is too.
Right. So when you're approaching a subject, how were you doing that with this new album? Like, did you have it planned out? Okay, I want to sing about this. I want this type of topic done. Like, how do you work that out? Some stuff was like subjects that we maybe wanted to touch on in the last one, but we couldn't. A lot of it was like we wanted to kind of. There's like some references to the old songs, so like some of the stories in these songs are almost like sequels to songs on the EP, and there's like references and we have lots of little Easter eggs kind of hidden for like either fans or people who will figure it out or put it together. But then others were like completely isolated new stuff. Okay. You actually said, hey, I want to talk about this. I want, kind of a sequel going on from this previous track.
Yeah, and I could say, I want to say that there's one giant story or that it's like one giant concept, but there was definitely, we wanted to have a little more optimism in this one. Like the last one was so centered around a lot of subjects like depression and suicide and, heartbreak and all that stuff that, everyone really relates to, but it's kind of this one, I'm not going to say this one isn't dark because there's some very dark stuff on this one, but there's a lot more like light in at the end of the tunnel metaphors in some of these songs. Some of them were almost, I would say, some songs I almost would say are kind of like the coming out of the darkness.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to going into it on like the last EP,
right? Which
is kind of cool.
Yeah. No, it's always. I'm not always the most positive person, but it is nice to have.
Oh yeah, no. I couldn't tell by your name.
Oh, that's very true. Even though, I have that discussion with people all the time that the name is opposite because I couldn't, like, you can't do Ian Loves. Like, that's just too boring. You have to do something that's different. So most of the stuff that I talk about is stuff that I love, but you have to go with that hates name because that's the attention getter,
It definitely like makes it more interesting because there's one thing I've noticed is that people love drama and controversy. They pay more attention to things that they think are negative.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I kind of was trying to capitalize on when I did the whole name. It was just a nickname that I had for like 10 years because I was very open. I would actually talk about something if I had an opinion where I was like, oh no, I don't like this. I was very open about that. So that's where the name came. So I
mean,
totally get it.
I will say that, you know, you're very honest about what you feel and think about things and all that. And like, that's something you don't find as often anymore because it's like really, really hard to have a subjective opinion on the internet these days.
Yes. Yes, it is. No, I would rather, I mean, this is a tangent, obviously, but I would rather always be open and honest about stuff. And I like to make jokes. So I would hope that in most cases, people are going to understand. Like, for instance, you right now could make fun of my favorite band. And if the joke was funny, I would laugh. I wouldn't hold something against you because of that. I think one of the problems with internet culture and social media is that everyone is trying to they're trying to defend themselves or a band or whatever that they love. If you just go along with things and you joke, like for one, I love Bring Me the Horizon. I really do. I don't like their new album, but making a joke about it shouldn't piss people off to the point where they're like blocking you on social media. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that people need to remember that comedy is comedy. Like,
right.
You know, I mean, Scene Daddy's a great example right there. I mean,
Yeah.
I know for a fact that owner of Scene Daddy loves like 90% of the bands that he, you know, might get roasted in a meme, but it's like, you don't think we don't laugh at ourselves sometimes, you know? It's like, you know, half the jokes I've ever heard about our band, like we ended up just using ourselves, you know what I mean? So it's like, you got to be able to like laugh at yourself. And there's definitely some subjects that used and joked about in the wrong context, especially sensitive subjects, because the whole planet's in kind of a mess right now with a lot of different things. But you really shouldn't touch, I feel like. And but I think people need to remember that everyone has a subjective opinion, and of like you're objectively being like, yeah, like I feel like this is this, or I don't think that sounds like that, or I just don't like it. That's not saying like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're allowed to not like feel how you want to feel. I think there's definitely people who are just like, oh, this is garbage because I don't like it. Now, like that's just okay, you know, that's your opinion,
exactly.
But it doesn't suck just because you say it does.
Right.
And I think people just need to learn to know the difference. Like you're allowed to like be like, yeah, that just doesn't get me. I get why other people like it, but I don't, you know?
Yeah. It's like you don't connect to that. And it's going to be the way it is, whether it's podcasting, whether it's a band. There's always going to be people that like something. There are going to be people that don't. There are going to be people that realize that there's going to be changes. And I think that's one of the big things that we deal with. And I know you know about it. It's one of those things where if a band changes their sound, the question always is, you know, are they selling out? Are they changing because that's the type of music that they want to play? You know, is it an evolution? People like to use the term evolution whenever they're trying to defend a band's like change in sound.
Yeah, and I think that it's a combination of people accepting something for what it is, and some people are just like biased, you know, fanboys too. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, you could argue that Parkway Drive evolved, but you know, people shit all over them. You know what I mean? They didn't go, you know, they went in a different direction.
Right.
But I mean, it's like you can't, you know, it's like there's definitely there's a reason for everything. There's a reason a band does something. You know, it might be longevity of the band, you know, like some bands hit a point where it's like, yeah, we want to keep making music, but you know, we can't keep playing this, you know, we don't want to keep just playing the genre, or, you know, we've said all we have to say,
right?
You know, that could be expressed through this sound, you know, maybe that's just not who we are, you know. And I mean, I'm pretty sure it was Oliver Sykes who said himself, he was like, you know, I just like had nothing to yell about anymore.
Right.
You know,
yes.
Which, you know, and that's kind of like where he hit, where it's with the point he hit. And, you know, if I'm sure there's plenty of people who would rather have seen them break up, but then there's a lot of people who are like, well, I'm glad they're still making music. So and then if it's not for you, I mean, like there's plenty of other things to bitch about or listen to.
Exactly.
You know, if you don't like it.
Yeah. When I gave my like slight review for Ammo, I said at the end, like I felt like I had to say it at the end, they can do whatever they want to do. I think people need to understand that they don't own a band. Like you can love a band and that's fine. You don't get to dictate what music that they want to play. You don't get to dictate any of that kind of stuff. If you don't listen, I guess in a way that's showing your preference, and maybe that will dictate how they make music. But in general, what I was saying was, look, there are hundreds of bands that I can listen to instead of Bring Me the Horizon, but sharing your opinion is just that. You're sharing your opinion, but I'll go listen to you. And I'll go listen to Save and Vice. I'll go listen to whatever. And I just won't listen to their new stuff.
Well, yeah, Under Oath is my favorite band of all time. Like, I'd be lying if I said I really liked their new album. I was like bummed at the direction they went, but I'm really glad that they're together and making music,
Right.
and that they got nominated for a Grammy. Like, that's really cool. That's really cool for our genre in general.
Right.
A band that transcends that gap, like A Day to Remember kind of did, and Bring Me the Horizon. Bring Me the Horizon, broke walls.
Sure.
And I think stylistically too, and aesthetically, a lot of what they're doing is very current and in line with like the fashion and themes of like the current like emo SoundCloud rap kind of grungy like 90s look and all that stuff. I feel like they're catering to the right audience right now that falls in that middle ground, because like emo now in like the mainstream world is like face-tatted hip-hop rappers.
Yeah.
It's like that's what it is. Like, it's like that's what like the mainstream emo is.
Right.
And I feel like they're in a way kind of pandering to that audience too, which is very smart on their end,
for sure. Yeah.
So
I think that's where the debate comes in a little bit is, sure, if they like making that music, that's great. But if they are catering because they know this is going to do well with a certain audience, the question comes in, then are they doing it for the right reasons? Now, we might never know that exact answer, but I think that's where people have an issue sometimes. That's why it's so divisive.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I feel like I see a lot of people in like the metal community who are all like really into like, Ghostman and, Lil Peep and all that stuff. And,
Sure.
And then like there's a lot of guys who used to be in metalcore bands who are making that stuff.
Right.
If I had to bet money, I would bet money that Ghostman used to be in a metalcore band before he was doing what he's doing too.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like it didn't, sometimes, and unfortunately, some people look at it as a bad thing or a good thing, but a laptop and the internet has given people a platform where they don't need a band.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you can just be your own artist and do what you want, how you want to do it.
Yeah.
But it's also just like anything else, is very oversaturated right now. And I think Bring Me the Horizon might be pandering a little bit, but they might all just have like evolved their taste, and maybe that's just what they're listening to. Maybe they all just like, listen to Post Malone and pop and Don Brocco, and that's what they want to sound like now.
I will say, maybe it's a little outside my normal spectrum, but I love Don Brocco.
They're amazing.
Yeah. Like I was surprised when I liked them, but that's the kind of thing I think people have to be open to listening to a bunch of different music that happen to still be in the scene. Like, I think that's the thing with Bring Me the Horizon as well. And we'll move on from them because it's going to get tiring. But it's just one of those things where, like, I listened to the album multiple times to make sure that I was saying the correct thing when talking about them. You know what I mean? I didn't just skip around and go like, oh, no, this is EDM. I don't want to listen to this. Like, I went through it to try and figure out why I didn't like it.
No, yeah, no, absolutely. It's actually funny, and just to kind of like, I know, to close out the subject, it was kind of cool because like Don Brocco is a band that like our band just got really into, because when we played Warped Tour, we all checked them out, and it was like probably the best performance I saw all day.
Yeah,
and that band I think is about to explode too. But it's kind of funny because their newer sound reminds me a lot of New Bring Me the Horizon. It wouldn't surprise me to see them on tour together anytime soon.
Oh, no, yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, and especially because they're both English bands as well. So it's kind of how, like, Bring Me the Horizon takes on, like, While She Sleeps a lot of times on tour. Like, completely see that. All right, we're moving on from that. I did want to mention, since you brought up Under Oath, we never got to talk about this, and I've been waiting to hear about it. Please tell me about last year with I Matter Fest, because I know there's another one coming up this year, which I'm hoping you guys get a chance to play. Tell me about sharing the stage with Under Oath.
I mean, it was definitely like, I'd probably say like I've met a lot of bands, like a lot. I've like interacted and been around a lot of bands, and like you kind of lose the starstruck thing after a while. Like you kind of you meet a lot of people, you realize they're all just dudes who just happen to get a lot farther than you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Who like, or like they might be more talented, and you realize that they're all just people, and it was cool, like chilling, it was kind of surreal to be sitting there, like eating lunch next to August Madrid. Like that was cool, and then, but it was like, Under Oath flew into play, and, they were like getting ready to go on. And it's like, even I was kind of just like, I'm just not even going to say anything, because I just don't want to come off like a fanboy. I just kind of just stood there and was like, where they're about to go on the stage we just played. That's really cool. And I just kind of was just like, it was surreal, especially just being so new in the scene to like, I'm already playing with like my favorite band of all time. Like that's off the bucket list now. So that's pretty much what it was. You know, it was like 2018 was like two big things that
Yeah.
if I had a list of things I would like Saving Vice to do, it would have been like Warped Tour and play with Under Oath. So that was pretty cool.
Just retire. Like, it's completely fine.
Yeah, well, especially, you know, a band, you know, when they broke up, I wasn't in a band at the time.
Mhm.
And when they broke up, I was like, well, I guess I'm never playing with them now. That dream's gone. So then they, you know, same thing with Warped Tour. I saw Warped Tour was ending. And I was like, well, I guess I'm never playing Warped Tour. And then somehow I managed to like catch, you know, make both those things happen. So for me personally, that was really awesome.
Now, this is another thing we didn't get a chance to talk about. How did Warped Tour go for you? Because I know that day you lost your voice, right?
Oh yeah, I had lost my voice like a month or so before. I mean, it went really, really well. Like the
Good.
crowd was crazy. It was awesome. Like the tent was mobbed. It was like, it was beyond my expectations.
Mhm.
And despite, you know, me, and I think too, like sometimes we're our own worst critics. You know, I've probably seen a ton of bands I love. Like, you know, I've seen vocalists I love on a bad day.
Yeah.
And it's not like I left being like, oh man, they're trash. You can tell when it's like, oh, it's, you know, it's like, oh, it's, you know, it's hot. It's like hot and it's
Oh, yeah.
dry, or you can tell that they're just having a rough day. Like, you know, so like, I think a lot of people are just having too much fun to be really like picking it apart. I definitely had some people be like, oh yeah, I noticed you sounded like a lot better this time. And it's like, yeah, well, it's because I literally was like fried. I couldn't even talk. I sounded, I had like rocks in my throat.
Yeah. Yeah, because we were going to talk that day too. And I remember, because that was insane, they had me in the interview room like the entire day. Bam, 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 interview after interview. But that was still a pretty surreal experience. So what do you think about the whole, like, hey, we're going to do 5 dates this year for Warped Tour? Are you happy about that? Is that something you guys are going to try to get on as well?
I mean, it's definitely something that I would like to do if we can.
Mhm.
You know, it's like any big festival, like, you know, and I'm glad to see. I'd rather see Warped Tour as a festival than not see Warped Tour at all. You know,
Right.
And people love to hate on, like, people love to like. Everyone shit on Warped Tour, was like shitting on Warped Tour until Warped Tour was ending, and then it like sold out, and everyone was like, "Oh no, we missed Warped Tour." It's just like when a band that's, you know, played out breaks up, and everyone's like, "Eh," but then and, like they're sad when they break up, but no one was listening to them for the past like year or two, and then they come back with a reunion, and it's like a fresh new big deal again, you know. So it's a fair weather thing, I think sometimes, but I think people just don't know what they have until it's gone too.
Very true. Yeah. I guess that's a life lesson for everyone. It's very cliche, but it's very true. I thought one of the funniest things that I saw was when the excitement was there because they announced the dates. There were still people like I was like, oh, hey, this is great. I like Warped Tour a lot, so I'm hoping that I can go to like the East Coast show or something like that. And someone commented on the post that I had saying, oh, good. I mean, I'm glad it's back. I hope it doesn't suck like last year did. It's like, that's why they went away in the first place. It's because people just didn't care, or they constantly said, oh, this lineup sucks. Personally, I don't think any Warped Tour has ever sucked, because you always find bands that you like.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think people like, you know, it's like music too. It's, you know, they don't know what goes into it. Like,
Sure.
You know, I mean, I had a pretty good idea of how crazy Warped Tour was, you know, but then like playing it and being completely behind the scenes, and like you see all the pieces moving and like what they do in one day, and then set up, and it's like, it's insane. And, you know, it's like a lot of moving parts, and a lot is put together, and it's like a huge run with like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and it's just like running it. And, you know, it's and then you have some guy like in his laptop who's just like, yeah, fuck this sucks. It's like, you know, it's like, well, it's okay, but, you know, it's like a band. It's like, oh, these guys could have put in hours and hours of time and effort into recording and writing, and like, it wasn't your cup of tea. So it's like, oh yeah, it's trash, I'm gonna shit all over it. It's like, you know, that's just the internet culture, though. You know, you can't avoid that.
That's true. And it's the critical culture as well. And I mean, I fall into it as well, since I have other shows that I do where we review albums and we review singles and we talk about things that are happening. It kind of goes with that as well. I thought one of the most interesting things recently that I saw on the scene was, you know, you follow Ronnie Radke on Twitter, and he's obviously having it out with people like all the time. And one of the things that he hates is anyone that criticizes his music who's also not a musician. So he was going off on like the YouTube channels that do reaction videos to singles, and he specifically said, if you don't make music, you shouldn't be able to criticize music. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, Ronnie's a controversial figure, and like, I have a good friend who actually plays bass for Falling in Reverse, and I
Oh,
actually
yeah.
kind of like got. He brought me backstage. By the way, standing behind their drum set while
Yeah.
you're staring at an ocean of people, like, you know, it's like people, you know, and I don't really have a whole lot of personal opinion about the guy because I don't know him,
Sure,
you know, and
sure.
you hear 1,000 rumors, and I don't, you know, I can't clarify if I don't know something's true. Like, I'm not going to like form an opinion about it, but
Right.
but like they definitely like aren't, you know, they're not doing bad. So it's like, you know, but I think that that statement that you shouldn't critique music if you don't make music, I think to a degree, I don't know if I can fully agree with, just because I feel like you know, you make music for yourself, but you make it for an audience. And it's
Sure.
like, if you don't, you know, you're making a product, you can't expect the product to not have anybody judge it when you're
Right.
making it for the customer that's buying it. You know what I mean? To a degree.
Yeah.
So, but then again, it just depends on your mindset. Like, you know, that's subjective. So
For sure. Actually, I think I saw you backstage at Falling in Reverse because I was taking photos at that time. So I think I did see you back there when they were playing, and they're normally pretty good live. Like, whatever you want to say about
I'll be
Ronnie.
honest. Like, you know, like I said, say whatever you want about him, but Ronnie hit every fucking note.
Yeah.
You know, like it was solid. It was a good live performance. Like, I couldn't objectively shit on it. You know, like, even if I wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Whether you like their music or not, Ronnie knows what he's doing. One of the things I think is weird about their set or what Ronnie does now is his style of singing. Have you noticed the way that he sings now compared to the way that he used to sing?
I mean, you do mean like his posture, like he doesn't move around as much?
It's the posture, and then it's almost like I'm trying to think of the right word. It's like he's being grandiose with the way that he sings. Like he's enunciating a different way than he does with the albums themselves. And I was wondering if that had something to do with how he needs to be able to sing on something like Warped Tour so that you don't blow out your voice. If it had something to do with that compared to something else.
I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I mean, like I can tell you right now that, like, you know, it's a lot of it is probably stamina and just making sure, like, you know, every bit of energy you're putting into jumping and moving, like, is coming out of your breath control to a degree. So it's like, if you want to be run an arena band and you want to focus on just like sounding as best as you can, sometimes the movement takes the back seat, which is part of the reason I'm grateful to be in a 2-vocalist band, because we give each other that breath to just kind of like lose our shit on stage if we want. And, but I think that enunciation goes a long way with like just projecting and making your sound like it's like a natural muscle thing that just makes your tone more clear too. So it might be that, you know, I can't really say. I feel like everyone, it's kind of like when I gave up on, you know, someone would post on Facebook like, oh, any tips for this or that? It's like, I just gave up because there's so many, it's so hard to explain to someone how to sing or scream. And like, it's even harder to like debate with people about, you know, the whole thing. Like, my whole recommendation is just like, see a good vocal coach like 3 times, and it'll do more than all the, you know, the internet reading and, you know, the self teaching that you can do. Like, I mean, I've been singing for like 10 years or so, and I feel like I just started getting good in the last 2 years because I finally like went and saw a coach, and they teach you these little things that you'd never think of. It's all like psychological. Melissa Cross is a genius too. You know, she does a lot of the same stuff. It's like, oh, throw your voice up the roof of your mouth and at your teeth. And you just thinking that, if you do it, it makes you sing better. It's like the weirdest thing ever. I can't explain it. Like,
yeah, it's one of the reasons why I never asked that question. Like, I don't think in the hundreds of episodes that I've done of this, and I mean, Scene Daddy, this is new, but in my other shows, I've never actually asked that question because I don't think people can actually answer it.
Yeah, it's a lot of digging. You have to like dig really deep, and you're like, it's like you teach yourself muscle memory things that you just innately like you innately just sing wrong sometimes. Like, you're like, it's hard to explain. You know, we could go in for hours. That's like a whole other topic. But yeah, it's like, but you know, you can tell. It's one thing I've learned from like watching just the posture of other musicians I see, especially ones who are so consistently good when they're playing shows every day. You know, one person who we just played with recently, I'd say is really, really good. Like, is Brian from Currents.
Oh,
like
sure.
that dude knows what he's doing, like to a T. Like, he has the posture, the breath control. He doesn't stress his vocals. He's like doing it all right, and it shows. And, you know, he's like, you know, he's a good example. Spencer Chamberlain's another one. You know, he sounds as good as he did 10 years ago, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah, when they were a pop punk band. Yeah, No, it's very true. It's honestly very true.
I'm
So
sorry, Spencer Chamberlain, not Charnas, is what I said. My bad.
sorry, no, that was my fault.
But no,
I
Spencer
misconstrued.
Charnas is also excellent live.
Yeah, I think my mind goes to him because they are such a great live band. Like, that's just something, if I hear Spencer, now I think of that instead of Under Oath, which is weird. It's kind of weird.
Well, they really, I think, like worked their asses off their entire career, and I feel like this last full length, like, really kind of put them, I think, in the spotlight that they've been working towards and that they deserve.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, they had people were comparing them like album of the year against the new Architects album. Like, if that's not an accomplishment in metalcore, I don't know what is.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Well, actually, that does bring up something pretty interesting. So with working with a new album, were there any outside influences that you would say kind of worked their way into what you were doing?
Oh, always. I try to say, like, we don't ever like try to copy anyone or imitate anyone, but you definitely get like, oh, like, I like how like that style of thing, or I like how they do this with their vocals, or I like their kind of, theme. And having like all of our favorite things from different metalcore bands or metal bands or deathcore bands or even pop bands that we all like, and getting ideas from that and putting it together to make new stuff is kind of what this whole album was. So, it might be like, oh, like if people try to say, oh, this is the new album and it's for fans of, I feel like my list of bands would be like, it'd be like 20 bands long, because there's like so many different kind of sounds you can find, especially in the, the lyrics and everything.
Right. Yeah, very true. Now we're going to kind of shift back instead of talking about other people, talking about you. So I know you guys love playing live. Do you have anything that's coming out soon where you're going to be able to go out? Are you working on a tour? Are you guys working on anything between working on the new album?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes to kind of all of that, but nothing confirmed, I can say.
Okay. All right. Hey, like I said, I gotta check. So that's good to know, though, because I mean, I've mentioned on the show before, you guys are so good live that people need to make sure that they go out and check you guys out, because it's also going to make even more fans once they see what you guys are able to pull off live.
I definitely feel like, I mean, I'm sure like any band like at this level or any level would say the same thing, but it's like, just stay and watch us.
Yeah.
And you'll see. Like, that's all we have. It's like, just like put us in front of people, and we've never had a bad day.
Right.
Like, if there's a crowd, like we always come out like meeting new people and like having a good experience, and like something comes out of it. Like, it's just obviously like it's just getting your, putting your music in people's faces in any way you can. Which, unfortunately, social media and how Facebook's all rigged, it's like pretty much a giant rat race on the internet now. And like, unfortunately, not as people turn out to like even tour dates for a lot of bands as they used to. People don't go out to shows to discover new music as much as they did, when I was younger. Yeah. And you have to use the internet no matter how much you hate it sometimes. But, I think we found a pretty good medium, but I'm pretty excited to get in front of some new faces and hit some new states this year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, obviously, whenever that kind of stuff is announced, we'll talk about it on the show and on Scene Daddy. I mean, we'll make sure that we get all that kind of stuff out. So I think I've grilled you enough on your music. So I have to ask, we always go off on tangents on the show, but I have to see, what have you been up to recently that isn't music related? Is there any, movies, TV shows? I recently saw, was that your action figure collection?
Oh yeah, I'm like a giant. Yeah, I know. I can already hear Zach rolling his eyes when he hears this right now. Like, no, yeah, that was mine. I'm a big. I was that kid who just never like grew out of the stuff he liked. He kind of just was like, great, now I have more money to buy it. Like, it's kind of like, and no one can tell me I can't. That was kind of like my thing. But for the most part, I've been so busy with this pre-pro and, just grinding and trying to get everything lined up for this. I haven't had a whole lot of free time aside from obviously, like trying to like spend time with like the girlfriend when I can and, all that. But I'll definitely be playing Kingdom Hearts 3 when I get home.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, I am waiting. So I just got my copy of Resident Evil 2.
I want to play that too.
Yeah. Like it's one of those things where that was a game that like changed my opinion on horror games. Like it made horror games something that I wanted to do. So I know this isn't the exact same title. Like it's a remake or a reboot, but it's going to be a different story. But I want to play that, and then I think everyone in the scene is going to be playing Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, I think, I've definitely been seeing a lot of, it's like my entire feed on Facebook is either Bring Me the Horizon, Kingdom Hearts, or Resident Evil right now.
Yeah, that's about it. Now, how has your travel been? I know you've been traveling around a lot as well. That's got to be a little tiring, but how has it been for you?
I've kind of just gotten used to it at this point. You know, you kind of like, you learn to like plan out. I learned to plan out like cooking food like a day, so I have like food for 4 days because I won't have time to like do laundry, let alone cook dinner sometimes, with just like working between writing and doing demos and then everything that we're trying to plan and schedule it out. So, I mean, like, I probably won't even get to play Kingdom Hearts for a couple days after I buy it, which kind of, but there's a lot of movies I'd like to see right now too, that I probably wanted to see the new DBZ movie and like see Glass, but you got to put that stuff on the back burner sometimes.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're a big DBZ fan, right?
Yeah, I mean, not as much now as I was when I was a kid. I know Robbie's just gotten into it recently, but
really?
Yeah, like I have like every manga, like I have like every series. I was like an encyclopedia. That's like the one trivia that I used to be able, I could smoke anyone at once upon a time.
Oh, that's great. Wait, did you say Robbie's just now getting into DBZ?
Yeah, Robbie's kind of new to the anime thing, so he's just gotten into like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and DBZ.
Wow.
But he says it lives up to the hype.
Yeah, I guess there's that small group of people that say that DBZ is overrated. And look, there are lots of filler episodes, but you can't take away from their actual, like, what the stories meant and the characters, all that kind of stuff. Like, sure, there are a lot of episodes you can skip around, for sure. But to say that DBZ is overrated has always been kind of weird for me.
Yeah, like I haven't had as much time for anime like as I used to. I've been trying to like get back into it. Like most of the stuff that I mainly circle around is like the Marvel universe and like Star Wars lately. But I try to keep up when I can with like my favorite. You know, I'll be excited for like the next Evangelion movie to come out and stuff like that. I'm the only like hardcore anime nerd in the band though. So,
well, look, we can always do a show about animes. I'd be totally up for that.
Dude, yeah, no, you want to talk about Netflix shows or all that kind of stuff, like hit me up. And if you ever want to talk about Camp Lazlo or South Park, hit Chase up.
No, look, we got to do, I think we've talked about it before. We definitely have to do an episode of Ian Hates Movies at some point. We just have to figure out which
we'll talk for like 10 hours, dude.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll just do the whole entire Marvel universe.
Oh, God. No one wants to hear that.
Believe it or not, they all want to hear it, which is very strange.
All right, well, I'm down then.
All right, man. So I think we are pretty good. I was looking at time. I know you got to get in the studio. I think this is a pretty good time right now. So let's wrap things up. We know that the new album is being recorded right now. I'm going to have links in the description of the episode so that everyone can follow everything you're doing. I think this worked out really well. You know, one of the first podcasts for Scene Daddy. I think this is going to be really interesting to people. I think people want to hear about everything that you're doing. But until we have all that set, what is the best way for people to support you and Saving Vice?
Honestly, it's just like, stream the music, share the posts, follow the pages. Like it's, unfortunately, it's like, that's your best way to like, to help us out, but also keep up with us.
Right.
The internet makes it almost like stacks it against you trying to even just show your own fans what you're doing a lot of the time. So it's like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow, just, support the pages, sometimes it's just like liking a post and sharing it. It goes a lot farther than you think,
right.
In this, in the world that's like built around social media these days.
Oh, for sure.
But obviously like, when we're in the area, come see us, come hang out with us, like, come check us out. Like, come see us live. That would be the biggest thing.
For sure. Yeah, I think we've talked about this many times on the show. Going to see a band, putting actual money into their pocket, going over, buying merch, interacting with the band. That's something you guys have always been really good about as well. I've seen your interactions with fans. You guys are always really nice guys. I'm sure that brings in people as well.
Yeah, well, it's nice. It's like a family, it feels like that. So we always have we have like the SV family
Right.
It's like a whole group on Facebook too, where it's like, everyone can just exchange stuff and interact stuff, and make, do whatever they want to do. It's like nice to see the fans. I like seeing fans from around that didn't know each other make friends
Right.
through us, which is cool too.
Yeah. Actually, that happened with me. It does actually happen in real life.
Yeah, dude, networking is everything. I mean, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere without it, without just like meeting people and talking to people. And, it's like every band we say hi to or person we say hi to, it makes a ripple. It might be small at first, but it might come back. You might even see the results months later, but it goes a long way.
Very true.
But yeah, and I will say this, for everyone who's listening, definitely keep an eye out, because there's some more pretty cool interviews coming up and some other cool stuff from Scene Daddy. So definitely keep an eye out.
Absolutely. All right, man. I think that is a perfect part to leave on. So once again, man, thank you so much. Scene Daddy thanks you. Ian Hates thanks you. I am obviously, and I think a lot of people are really looking forward to the new album. So this was awesome to be able to talk to you about kind of the behind the scenes of everything. So once again, man, I'm a big fan of talking to you, catching up and everything. So thank you once again.
No, absolutely, man. I hope to see you soon, and thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Scene Daddy Interviews.
Thank you all for listening to Scene Daddy Interviews. Make sure you support the artists we featured by checking out the summary of the episode. Also, for all your scene news, reviews, and memes, make sure to follow Scene Daddy and Ian Hates on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe and rate Scene Daddy Interviews on your favorite podcast listening app for more great artist interviews in the future. Stay seen.